I'm going to call the meeting to order. Good morning. My name is Deputy Mayor Paul Ainsley. I'm the chair of the General Government Committee. We do have quorum, so I'm going to call meeting number 23 to order. Welcome, everybody. Today's meeting is being held by video conference and in person at City Hall in Committee Room number 1. This meeting is also being live streamed at youtube.com, Toronto City Council Live. For the land acknowledgement, I'd like to say on behalf of my colleagues and our staff that although we may be meeting in different locations today, the General Government Committee would like to acknowledge the land we're meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also would like to acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty Number 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Thank you very much. Just a reminder, if you are registered to speak at today's meeting, if you could please listen for me to call your name. I'll be calling the speakers in the order they appear on the list. The list of speakers can also be viewed online by visiting the General Government Committee portion of the city website at toronto.ca/council and clicking on the speakers box for today's General Government meeting. For members of the committee, just a reminder that the clerk has provided all of the agenda materials on the same website, toronto.ca/council, and on the clerk's meeting portal. Clerk's IT staff are also available if you need help with your electronic devices. And a reminder to please submit and approve your motions by email to the clerk staff at ggc@toronto.ca to help with any motions. At this point, I'm going to ask if there's any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Seeing none, can I have a motion to confirm the minutes from our last meeting of June 16th, 2025? Moved by Councillor Burnside. All in favor? That carries. We have 27 items on today's agenda. I would like to propose that we move the first, GD 23.24 is the first item considered following the agenda run through. We have some deputants and former member and Councillor Josh Matlow here for that items. Sorry, Councillor. I think I still drinking my coffee. So we're going to review the agenda. So our first item in the agenda run through is GG 23.1, ensuring continued transparency in the procurement process in the absence of the bid award panel. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Holiday. All in favor? That carries. Our second item is GG 23.2, review to request supplier suspensions and reinstate IPAC Paving Limited and Pave One Construction Limited. We do have a registered speaker, so I will hold that one down. Our next item is GG 23.3, amendment to blanket contract 470-2440 with Lockup Services Incorporated for the supply of locksmith services at various City of Toronto Children's Services locations. Can I have a mover or a seconder if there's no holds? Moved by Councillor Chang, seconded by Councillor Burnside. All in favor? That carries. Thanks, Matthew. GG 23.4, amendment to blanket contract 470-24975 with Trademark Industrial Incorporated and blanket contract 470-24976 with Ainsworth Incorporated for electrical, mechanical, and instrumentational services. Any holds? Can I have a mover? Councillor Thompson, all in favor? That carries. Our next item is GG 23.5, amendment to blanket contract number 470-24380 to Logixx Security Incorporated for citywide security services. Any holds? Can I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Burnside. All in favor? That carries. GG 23.6, amendment to blanket contract number 470-25730 with Schindler Elevator Corporation for the supply of elevating devices, maintenance, and repair services.
Chair, I'd like to hold that item, please.
Okay, Councillor Cheng's holding number 6. Item number 7, GG 23.7, amendment to purchase order number 6046514 to issue to Aecom Canada for consulting services for the new fleet services maintenance garage, salt barn, and brine facility located at 1050 Ellesmere Road. Moved by Councillor Thompson. All in favor? That carries. Number 8, GG 23.8, award of document 502-977-1372 to Bennett Mechanical Installations 2001 Limited for Ashbridges Bay Treatment Plant digester cleaning and rehabilitation. Moved by Councillor Holyday. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is GG 23.9, award of document 50601-62215 to GHD Limited and RV Anderson Associates Limited for coordinated Toronto Water and Transportation Services program assignments. Moved by Councillor Chang. All in favor? That carries. GG 23.10, award of document 507-4487-243 to 614-128 Ontario Limited for basement flooding protection program phase 4 in Ward 2. Any hold?
Chair, may I move this, Mr. Chair?
Sure. Moved by Councillor Holyday.
And say thank you to staff and acknowledge there's a number of residents in this community that are looking forward to the work because some of them were flooded twice last summer. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Councillor Holyday. All in favor, number 10, that carries. GG 23.11, non-competitive contract with Nederman Canada Limited for manufactured parts and services for corporate real estate management. Can I have a mover? Councillor Burnside, all in favor, that carries. GG 23.12, amendment to blanket contract 470-24775 with DragonAgile Consulting Incorporated for Atlassian software licenses and cloud subscriptions. Any hold? Can I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Chang. All in favor? That carries. GG 23.13, amendment to blanket contract 470-24834 with Graham Alarm Monitoring Limited and non-competitive contract with Fire Monitoring of Canada Incorporated for the non-exclusive supply of all labor equipment, material, and supervision required by CAN/ULC .S561 to monitor fire alarm systems. Any holds? Moved by Councillor Thompson. All in favor? That carries. GG 23.14, amendment to non-competitive purchase order 605-5315 with Osler, Hoskin and Harcourt Limited, LLP for legal services for Union Station.
May I hold that, please, Mr. Chair?
Sorry, who was that?
Councillor Thompson, may I hold that, please?
You hold? Okay.
Yes, thanks.
Number 14 is being held by Councillor Thompson. GG 23.
I'd like to hold 15 as well.
Sorry?
I'd like to hold 15 as well. I know you haven't read it out yet.
Sorry. GG 23.16, non-competitive contract with Fortran Traffic Systems Limited for the city's transportation services Vision Zero project.
I'd like to hold that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Councillor Thompson's holding number 16.
You got 15 for me, right?
Yes, sir.
I know you didn't read that out. Pardon?
14, 15, and 16.
Yeah, thanks.
GG 23.17, non-competitive contract with Kronos Canada Systems Incorporated for the proprietary workforce management software licenses, cloud subscriptions, and related services. Any holds? Can I have a mover? Councillor Holyday, all in favor? That carries. GG 23.18, non-competitive procurement with Fer-Pal Construction Limited for urgent water main cured in place pipelining at various locations in Ward 6. Can I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Thompson, all in favor? That carries. Lou, you can explain to me later what a cured in place lining is. Number 19, GG 23.19, non-competitive contract with Fluree Europe, Middle East, and Asia for proprietary software licenses, professional services, and related maintenance. Can I have a mover? Councillor Burnside?
I'll move it, Chair.
Sorry? Councillor Thompson?
I was offering to move it, Mr. Chair, but it's fine.
All right, Councillor Holiday's moving it. All in favor? That carries. Number 20, GG 23.20, advancing truth, reconciliation, and justice, nominal license agreement with Aboriginal Legal Services Incorporated for the Giiwedin Anang Council at 1123 Danforth Avenue. There's no holds. Can I have a mover? Councillor Burnside, all in favor? That carries. GG 23.21, below market lease agreement with the Network Child Care Services for Child Care Services at 292 Dundas Street West in Ward 11. I'm going to move it. All in favor? Carried. GG 23.22, community space tenancy lease agreement with the Neighborhood Group Community Services, a municipal capital facilities designation at 522 Yonge Street in Ward 18.
Chair, I'd like to hold that, please.
Councillor Chang is holding number 22.
Thank you.
GG 23.23, lease extension and amending agreement for Toronto Employment and Social Services at 700 Lawrence Avenue West in Ward 8. Moved by Councillor Burnside. All in favor? That carries. GG 23.24, we're holding for a deputation. GG 23.25, acquisition of the future Toronto Public Library site, St. Lawrence Branch in Ward 13. And as a Toronto Public Library board member, I'm very happy to move this. All in favor? That carries. GG 23.26, application for approval to expropriate Laneway East at 129 Peter Street. This is a stage 1 approval in Ward 10. Anybody have any holds? Can I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Holyday. All in favor? That carries. And our last item on our agenda is GG 23.27, application for approval expropriate property interest near Summerhill Station for the second exit project, stage 1, Ward 11. Can I have a mover? Councillor Thompson, all in favor? That carries. All right, and we're gonna go back to the beginning of the agenda. So our first item is GG 23.24, feasibility of entering to a long-term nominal lease agreement with the Toronto Firefighter Charity Incorporated, 641 Eglinton Avenue West in Ward 12. We have one registered speaker, Michael Smith for the Toronto Firefighters Charity Incorporated. Mr. Smith, whenever you're ready. And thank you to everybody for all your hard work to get to leave. Your work's much appreciated. Councillor Matlow, you're joining the deputant?
Yes, and with your indulgence, I was asked to come and join Mr. Smith. If you could essentially give me sort of a minute or two at the beginning, and then Mike will continue on.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you, Chair and members of the committee, for having us today. There is a building on Eglinton that is the historic 1932 Forest Hill Fire Hall that has been used by Metrolinx during their 1,000-year LRT construction, but is now free for use to do something very special with. For many years, families have been coming to Toronto to come to some of the best burn units in the country at Sunnybrook and Sick Kids. But it can be incredibly costly to stay at hotels, to find accommodation, and to support families who are burn survivors. So Mike Smith approached me a few years ago with an idea to create Toronto's first ever burn survivor family support center. And we'd like to do it at this building. This is a place that for a very nominal fee, families will be able to stay, get care, therapy on site, and then be able to go to Sick Kids and Sunnybrook and support their families who need that. When I brought the motion forward in December of last year, we didn't know how long it would take to even have this report completed and brought to this committee. And I want to express, both professionally but also personally, my heartfelt gratitude to the staff who worked on this to demonstrate the feasibility of this project, that it will work, and it's something that the city should support. Our next steps is to obviously raise the $12 million. We're going to be contributing Section 37, but we'll also be working with partner associations with the Toronto Firefighters Association, and also we are approaching the province and the federal government to see this this dream into fruition. So I'll sort of end by saying that this is going to be a deeply meaningful project to support families who need us, along with hosting a Toronto Fire museum at the base of the building to celebrate our Toronto firefighters' story. These are the people who run into buildings when the rest of us are running out of them, and sharing artifacts and the stories of both the tragedies of our past, but also the many stories of heroism that we've seen from our wonderful Toronto firefighters. And on that, I'm going to hand it over to Mike, who is the new president of the Toronto Firefighters Association.
I'd just like to thank the committee for today for letting me speak. And again, I can't thank Councillor Matlow enough for being our champion at City Hall, bringing this forward. This is light speed how fast this project is going. It's going to be a feel good for not only Toronto Fire, our business is burn survivors, and it's a natural fit that we take care of these families while they're getting treatment at Sunnybrook and Sick Kids. The location is right in the middle of the two hospitals. It's a quick trip, either east or west along the new LRT when it is open, to get on the subway line to get to Sick Kids, or up Bayview to Sunnybrook. I've had great partnership discussions with both of the burn centers at both those hospitals. They're very excited about the project. We have a lot of other partners that are just waiting for this to move forward, so there is a lease in place so we can start our fundraising efforts. And going forward, the costs would all be borne by the Toronto Firefighters Charities organization. So we'd like to keep it up and running, provide a place for these families. And the biggest, there's obviously a lot of challenges when someone is burnt in a family. This would give you other families going through the same thing to bounce ideas off, and you're all going through the same things. It's nice to have other people to talk to that have lived your experience. So does anyone have any questions for me? Sorry, I'm just very excited about this project.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Any questions of the deputy? Seeing none. Excellent. Thank you, and congratulations on your election to the Firefighters Association presidency. Questions of staff on this item? No. Speakers on this item? All right. I'll move the recommendations, and I'm just going to ask for a recorded vote. All in favor of the recommendations? Yep, so all in favor, Ainsley, Chang, Holiday, Thompson, and Burnside. That carries unanimously. All right, our next item is GG 23.2, request to review supplier suspensions and reinstate IPAC Paving Limited and Pave One Construction Limited. We have one registered speaker, Mr. John Corbo, by video conference.
Mr. Chair, may I just raise a point of order?
Sure, Councillor Holiday, point of order.
Just to advise you, Mr. Chair, that I may need to ask questions of our solicitor, which may necessitate going into camera.
Okay, all right. Okay. Okay, thank you, Councillor Holiday. Mr. Corbo, can you hear me?
Hi, good morning.
All right, you have 5 minutes to make your deputation whenever you're ready. Then each member committee has up to 5 minutes to ask you questions. After that, we call bringing back into committee, where we can ask questions of staff for up to 5 minutes, and then each councillor can speak on the item for up to 5 minutes. But you have the floor now for 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes, whenever you're ready.
Okay.
And welcome to City Hall.
First, thank you. Thank you for having me. First and foremost, I want to thank the city staff, particularly the purchasing department, for their thorough work and working with me to get this report through. We've been working with city for the last couple of years on this issue, and I just want to thank them. I want to thank the councillors. I want to speak a little bit about my company, IPAC and Pave One. We over the last decade, we've been doing focusing on many municipal projects for many municipalities, government entities, school boards, even the federal government, and I'm just looking forward to a new positive working relationship with the city. Thank you, councillors. That's everything for me.
Thank you, Mr. Corbo. Any questions of the deputant? Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the deputant. So who is Sebastian Carbo?
Is that referred to me?
You are the deputant, sir?
My father.
I'm sorry?
He's my father.
I see. And is he involved in any of the companies that you're currently in charge of?
No, he's not.
And so can you explain to the committee the transactional transfer that has taken place with respect to the companies that you now operate?
Well, one of the companies, Pave One, there is no transactional transfer because it was incorporated by me solely.
Okay.
The other company, IPAC Paving, was inherited to me from my father quite some time ago.
Okay. And are some of the employees that were involved with respect to the incident, I'll use that term, are they still working with the companies that you now operate?
No, none of the employees from 2011 are currently employed by IPAC.
Right. And so why should we as a committee take the action to, I guess, rescind and or to reinstate your company in the process of doing business with the city?
Well, I'd like to speak on the past performance of my companies, especially in public sector procurement and settings. We and purchasing is well aware of our history of being successful and past public procurements for pretty much all the municipalities outside of Toronto, provincial entities, Infrastructure Ontario, Metrolinx, school boards. So we've done quite some work in paving and civil construction. Secondly, the company has been exonerated as per the federal government's integrity regime. The City of Toronto's purchasing policy, I think, is in line with that, with the 5-year suspension. And I think the suspension has been concurrent since 2011, which makes it almost 15 years. So I'm after reviewing the report, it's pretty clear that the penalty and the time served has exceeded the city's expectations.
Right. Thank you. Those are the questions that I had, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Corbo.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Other questions of the deputant? Councillor Cheng?
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm just wondering what safeguards are now in place to prevent a similar incident from happening moving forward?
Sorry, is that question issued to me?
Yes, it is.
Well, many of our employees took a couple years ago in ethics courses, like a lot of our project managers and estimators. Like Councillor Thompson asked me earlier, he asked me if employees from the time of the incident occurred, and they no longer are employed by the company. And, you know, that's pretty much it in terms of safeguards.
I guess in terms of your operational model, are there steps that have been taken where decisions that are being made, financials are examined on a regular basis? So that's the kind of safeguards that I'm wondering are, you know, if they're in place, that there'd be some level of monitoring of transactions to ensure.
Yes, we're monitored. We do quarterly audits internally by our external accountants for the company currently. And everything else is in place the way it should be.
Okay, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cheng. Other questions by members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Corbo. Appreciate your time this morning. We'll now move on to questions of staff. Questions of staff on this item? Councillor Cheng, go ahead.
I have the same question. Thank you, Chair, for staff, as I asked the deputant, what is in place in terms of safeguarding to prevent future, you know, how was the original incident found out, and what do we do now to prevent this from happening across our city?
Through the chair, so for clarity, the original incident was with the TTC, and it was found through an investigation regarding the invoicing practices. So at this point, we have stronger contract management processes in place. Again, this has been a number of years since this was instituted. We have also brought forward the Supplier Code of Conduct as part of the purchasing bylaw or procurement bylaw updates. We have the supplier suspension protocol in place, which was not also in place back in the day. So we have been working on those more thorough measures. We're also looking at updating our invoicing practices with our buying and invoicing tool as part of the Ariba upgrade.
So when there's this type of invoicing happening, and I guess some would call what happened a kickback, and some people, you know, when they hear about the high value of many of the contracts of the city, there is this element of trust that people want to believe, and sometimes they don't, that the city and all of our employees are, as well as our contractors, are not in the, you know, doing this. So is something like this only able to be found out through an investigation, or what types of processes can be in place to prevent kickbacks from happening?
Kickbacks are hard to distinguish. What we do have in place is for invoicing practices, especially when it comes to construction contracts. We often have administrators for the project that do review the invoices and review for accuracy, as well as just reasonableness of what we're being charged, and that we get their professional input on it. So that's one of the measures that we have in place to ensure this doesn't happen. Again, it's about thoroughness, it's about review. We will not be able to prevent everything that happens, but the more we become due diligent when we are reviewing invoices, staying close with the contractors to ensure that we are getting the supporting documentation that we require. I think these are just measures to ensure due diligence in the process.
The other challenge, I think, for the City of Toronto is our contracts are so large that we have a very small pool of people who can bid for our contracts, which means that the competitiveness of the pricing is not always easy to determine. And I'm wondering, does that pool look like in terms of similar type companies to IPAC? So when we put out paving RFQs or RFPs, how many companies have the capacity to bid for a city project for this particular type of service?
Through the chair. I can't speak to the exact number. I can say that on average, we do get approximately 4 to 5 bids on paving contracts. So there is an industry out there. But again, we, as part of procurement, want to ensure that we have the most competitive bids that are meeting the requirements and the experience. And again, this is all validated through our thorough procurement measures, the practices that we have regarding references, reviews, and ensuring compliance with the bids, as then with contract management.
Great, thank you. Those are my questions.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chang. Other questions of staff on this item? Councillor Thompson?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, through you to staff. So can you unpack this for me in terms of the fact that this company was suspended and we're being asked today to reinstate, and of course this matter will go on to council. How did the process unfold with respect to reinstatement? Did they come to us? Did we go to them? How did that occur?
Through the chair. So they came to us as part of our current process for the supplier suspension protocol. What we have is typically suspended suppliers can come after half of their term has passed to request for the suspension to be lifted. In this instance, IPAC and PAVE 1, they have a lifelong suspension, which is not something that we have as part of our procedure currently. And also this was set before we even had this procedure or the supplier code of conduct. So they have been approaching the city to request the suspension lift. And after over 10 years, we did want to take a thorough look at where they were and the background of the suspension. In order to ensure that our supplier suspension program works correctly, we have to ensure that we're looking at it fairly and not just looking at the accountability measure that we're using, because we have to be clear, this is not a penalty. This is for accountability. So after a certain term, we have to look at when can we actually allow them to come back and build trust with the city again to ensure proper contracts are in place. So this was a unique situation where we're just trying to align with the current process and coming back to council to see if they have the appetite to lift the suspension. Again, from a fairness perspective.
Thank you. And I appreciate that. And with great respect, I can't say I know enough about the matter to appropriately sort of respond with respect to the request to reinstate. Could you perhaps in a more proceed way give us maybe a bit of the background? What happened? What were the scenarios? What was involved? And you've already determined that it was a TTC contract and it was found out through that process. But we're being asked to make a decision, and I don't know necessarily that there's enough information contained in the report itself to give us a flavor of the matter.
Okay, of course.
So, I don't know if you can do that publicly. If not, I'm happy to do it in.
This is actually all in reports currently that have been published on TIMIS. So I'm going to really keep it succinct. Long story short, the company, IPAC, as well as the owner, Sebastian Corbeau, was found guilty of being in, I'm going to use the word cahoots, but working with a TTC employee to up their invoices so that there could be background sharing of additional funding that they were receiving through this. The individual at the TTC.
Sorry, can I just interject for a second?
Yep.
So they're charging more on the invoice stated amount.
Correct.
In order to then distribute those increase, the delta increase, to someone else or to varying individuals?
So according to the case, it was for an individual at the TTC.
Okay.
It was the same individual who was responsible for paying the invoices.
Oh.
And that's how that scheme worked. So they were charged. This situation happened back in 2009. The investigation was concluded in 2011, which is when TTC and then the city decided to suspend IPAC. Following that, well, it was actually IPAC and Road Mill Construction. Road Mill Construction is no longer an entity. Following that, a couple of years later, so in 2014, there was a situation where equipment for IPAC was used as part of a Pave 1 contract, which is when we came back to suspend Pave 1 construction. So to be clear, Sebastian Corbeau was the individual suspended, as well as IPAC and Road Mill Construction. 2014, it was Pave 1 construction. John Corbeau was not suspended, though. It was just Pave 1. And that's where that ended. At that point, again, it was a lifelong suspension. There is no midpoint review. This is why 10 years later, we are looking at this as, where are we in the situation?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Other questions of staff on this item? Councillor Holiday.
Thank you. I just wanted to go over a little bit more detail about the latter half of Councillor Thompson's question. I'm just trying to understand the difference in the sequence of what was decided on IPAC and Pave 1. So IPAC was at the center of the first investigation, as I understand it, and council made its decisions. And then it fast forwards 2 years later concerning Pave 1. Could staff clarify the rationale for council's ban on Pave 1? Because I understand Pave 1 was something separate.
Through the chair, that is correct. Pave 1 was separate. Again, it was found as part of a process of awarding. It was found that some of the equipment from IPAC was being used as part of a Pave 1 contract. As part of the report published on Timis, again, it was then, I'm going to say, assumed that it was a way to potentially circumvent the suspension. And that's why the report went forward for suspension of Pave 1.
So if I may just read the line, it's quite definitive language in the report. It says one can reasonably conclude that Pave 1 was created to circumvent the suspension of IPAC and thereby allow its operating minds, including a convicted individual, to continue bidding on city contracts. A fairly strong language.
Correct.
So what and of course this report predates my experience with council. It sounds fairly definitive, fairly definitive advice to council at the time, and so they adopted the ban. Do I understand that correctly? That there was different reasons why council implemented a ban in 2014 on Pave 1.
That is correct.
And did that have to do with the bidding process and disclosure of information, I think is what the report seemed to be alluding to?
That is correct. It was as part of the bidding process, as part of the confirmation of who was doing the work. There was questions of the supplier at the time of, was there any connection to IPAC? Initially, it was disclosed that there was not. After clarity on what was actually the question being asked, it was disclosed that IPAC was in a form linked to Pave 1 construction through John Corbeau. Correct.
And there was continuity of directorship, was there not, for John Corbo from IPAC during the first examination of a suspension through to 2014 to the other company? There was a linkage with the director that was established. Do I understand that correctly?
That's correct. In 2009 up to, I believe it was 2011, IPAC was held by Sebastian Corbo. Again, the offending occurrence happened in 2009. The investigation went until 2011. In 2012, IPAC was, the directorship was changed over to John Corbo for approximately a year. It moved back to Sebastian and then has been with John Corbo since 2014.
Since 2014.
Correct.
Okay. Can you tell me what's before us today? Are we reopening a previous decision and reconsidering the temporal period, the time period? So it's a discussion of lifetime prohibition versus, or I guess forever prohibition versus, because it didn't really say lifetime in the words if I saw, versus a fixed time. Or is this sort of a rehashing of the previous council decision?
This is
examining details.
Yeah, this is a review of the previous decision and requesting for a lift of the suspension due to the fact that there was no time period given. And again, this was before there was any procedure for supplier suspension. Within our current supplier suspension procedure, we have a maximum 5 years for performance or performance against the supplier code of conduct, and a minimum of 5 years for illegality. Again, when this suspension came into place, that was not established. So at this point in time, again, after 10 years, taking a review at the makeup of the profile, the corporate profile, as well as the references from other jurisdictions, we do feel that from a fairness perspective, allowing them to come back and do business with the city and build the trust again is something that we can allow. Again, should they decide to bid on any city contracts, they would still have to be compliant and they would still have to provide all the supporting information that we require to ensure proper contract management. So it's not an open door, it's just an opportunity. Again, this is council's decision because council did issue the first suspension. So this is just a recommendation to allow them. Should council determine otherwise, that would be up to them.
Okay, thank you, Councillor
I've
Holiday.
exhausted my time, Mr. Chair, but I will ask for a second round just to finish up some questions.
Okay, Councillor Holiday is asking for a second round. All in favor, Councillor Holiday, second round.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Sharkey, you mentioned something about a minimum of 5 years for illegality. Did this involve the threshold of illegality? I'm assuming that includes criminal charges, right?
That is correct. There was an illegal act for Sebastian Corbo, which was later pardoned.
But the threshold, did I hear that right, is a minimum of 5 years?
Correct.
So this is still in compliance with the current policy?
This is still in compliance, but we would have a review point. Right now, we do not have a review point.
Okay, is this the first time a review has been brought before? And I'm sorry, I've taken liberty to call it a review, but is this the first time it's been brought before council or committee?
It is.
Okay, and finally, my last question was, I did read somewhere there was some degree of interpretation provided to the staff, and whether it was the chief procurement officer or not, I think it implied that you had to make a determination as to whether or not companies had some crossover involvement. Could you help me clarify that? Like, what exactly is the direction to you with respect to the named individual and the various entities?
I'm sorry, I'm just unclear about the question. What is?
Somewhere in the volumes of reports that are online, and you can appreciate there's several years of them in several reports, there was some notion that there was some interpretation provided to staff to make a determination through the process as to the degree of applicability of a ban to an entity. It was something to the effect of, whether or not you could determine a relationship with one company to the other. And I'm sorry, I'm not articulate in my question, but maybe you could be very precise in what council's instructions were to the procurement officer with respect to determining the eligibility of entities.
Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to answer your question appropriately since I'm still a little unclear. If we're talking about the original suspension or in 2014, I'm assuming?
Yeah, so it's either the 2012 or the 2014. And I'm sorry, it just seemed to be the way that I read the reports, there was some discretion that was provided to staff to make determinations.
Okay.
And I don't know if that was a temporary period or if that was a final period, because I do recall there were a couple of stages to the way that this was handled by council.
Correct. Unfortunately, I might have to look back at this. I do know that we are directed to interpret based on affiliations as part of entities, and Pave 1 and IPAC would have been considered affiliates at the time.
So, okay, so I think we're on to what I was getting at. So you are able to make determinations on affiliates.
Correct.
So my question to you today then is, if you're satisfied that Pave 1 is not an affiliate of IPAC, then why are we here? Why could you not then make the determination that it's a separate entity and it's the issues are no longer applicable? And maybe what I'm getting at is there's a big difference between the two companies that are named in the report, right, with respect to history and so on.
Correct.
But I wondered if do you have the discretion you need today to grant one and not the other?
I honestly would have to check with legal on that. I apologize. We could look at them as two separate entities potentially, but again, I'd have to verify with legal on that interpretation. I apologize.
So, Mr. Chair, we don't have to solve this today, but I did want to get clarity on that the circumstances around both of those entities are different, right? There were different reports, different time periods. And I think it's important for us to know as to whether or not one falls within the discretion of the staff to determine affiliation versus one which was very explicit in council's directions. And I think that's germane to the discussion before us today.
Sorry, Councillor, was that a question or?
To the
Well,
chair.
Your question to staff.
I guess maybe it's a point of order to you, Mr. Chair, in that is the recommendation before us complete, because maybe one of the entities falls under the discretion of staff. We actually don't have to debate it. So staff could determine that Pave 1 may determine, I should say, or determine yes or no, that Pave 1 is unaffiliated versus affiliated. I don't know. Is there anyone that could comment on that? Maybe it's a question to staff.
To the chair, just as a point, council made a decision in August of 2014 to permanently suspend Pave 1. So that is a decision of council. Staff would not have the delegated authority to reverse a decision of council.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Holiday. We're on speakers of this item.
Sorry, Chair, I have questions on the second round, if that's okay.
Okay, Councillor Cheng, questions of staff.
Councillor Ainsley, I also have a question on the second round as well.
Oh, good morning, Councillor Manses.
Good morning.
Sorry, you have questions?
Just one.
Just one?
One question.
Okay, so with the committee's indulgence, we'll give you one question. Okay, go ahead, Councillor
Councillor
Manses.
Okay. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Ms. Sharkey. Would we be able to split the two companies from the report?
Sorry, Councillor, the CFO just answered that.
Good. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Councillor Cheng, questions of staff?
Thank you. I'm just wondering in our processes that when we have banned a company and then they come back after, let's say, 5 years or whatever period we determine, is there some kind of built-in review or investigation just to check in to make sure that whatever has happened in the past isn't repeated in the future?
Through the chair, currently there is not, but at the same time, we're currently in the process of reviewing the suspension procedures. And that would be something that we can definitely look into.
Great. And was there ever any financial reimbursement to the city on the amount of money that was overcharged in the process in the past?
This file was with the TTC, so nothing came back to the city. Restitutions, I understand, were made to the TTC.
So the amount of money that was overcharged did go back to the TTC? Sorry,
Councillor Cheng, you're straying away from the topic before us.
Well, I think I'm just trying to understand if something was overcharged, that the company reimbursed the city or the TTC. Because that's, I think, indicates, trust and amendments with the city.
My understanding is that restitutions funds were paid back to the TTC from the guilty parties.
Great, thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thank you, Councillor Cheng. Other questions of the staff on the second round? Sorry, Councillor Thompson, did I see your hand?
I was putting my hand up to speak, Mr. Chair.
Oh, okay.
So
All
it was a
right.
little bit premature there. My apologies.
That's okay. Now I'm going to say speakers on this item. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's a bit of a conundrum, I guess I'll say, at least for me anyways. I had come this morning after having read the report over the course of the weekend to simply move this along by supporting it and so on. However, I have to say that by the speaker coming forward and not even having his camera on, actually, for me, is not persuasive. Now, one will say, well, what difference does it make? Well, it actually makes a difference to me personally. And so while I was very appreciative of having him, John Corbo, who come in to speak, I would have thought you'd had enough time and ability to come to this meeting and present yourself to this committee. You're asking for forgiveness. You're asking for us to take certain actions and so on in light of what has transpired and, the intricacies and the ability for, companies to dodge and sort of, position themselves or reorganizing and so on and so forth. Now, I'm not suggesting that any of this has occurred here. It is just my sense of it, and that one would want to step up and, present themselves to this committee. And so that didn't happen for me. And in light of all the information that I've read, I'm uncomfortable in terms of making a decision here, given the fact that this was a council decision. I actually think, Mr. Chair, we really should refer this matter to council without deciding on it. So in essence, not, making a decision, just to send this to council without recommendation as such. And let's have a discussion, let's have a debate there. Since this was a council decision that was made a number of years back. And yes, I understand from Ms. Sharkey. And by the way, may I congratulate Ms. Sharkey and team. I think they do an amazing job in terms of this file. So thank them for that. And this is a very difficult situation. So I would recommend to committee that we send this item to council without recommendation. I'm uncomfortable with respect to just voting in support of this at this particular point in time. This is my company and I'm going through this process. I want to present myself if I have a strong conviction about, the way things are. Again, not disparaging or not suggesting anything towards the speaker. It's just the way I think about these things. And I just have, at the moment, I'm going with my gut. I have read the report. I read it a few times, actually. I've spoken to at least one person about this. And as I said, I had come with respect to an intention to, vote in support of it. But based on the presentation this morning, I'm not convinced that it is the appropriate action that I personally can take. So that this matter, really, I would suggest that we go to council. Let council decide whether or not we reinstate them. I won't be voting in support of the recommendation here, which is essentially that council reinstate. So it's a decision that council has to make. And so I'll just leave it at that, Mr. Chair. It's really my feeling. It's a gut feeling that I have, and obviously it has been obviously affirmed by the lack of what I believe should have been a more visual, along with the verbal presentation, which I didn't get here today. So I'm uncomfortable with respect to making a decision. As part of this committee, I'd rather have some further discussion and maybe additional information as we move forward to council on the 23rd. Those are my comments, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thompson. Sorry, just to be clear, you're moving a motion to refer?
Yes, I hadn't sent it to Senator or to the staff, but I would just simply move, a simple one, that this matter be forward to council without recommendations of the committee, of course.
All right, thank you very much. No. Yep, perfect. Okay, other speakers on this item? You good?
Why not? But I won't take 5 minutes. I agree completely with Councillor Thompson. I think it's very bizarre that someone who wants to get reinstated with the city can't make the effort to come down, show their face, let us look that person in the eye, make a judgment or not. But to do it online without a camera on, I think that is just so bizarre and quite frankly, a little disrespectful given the stakes.
You have 4 minutes and 42 seconds left.
Leading by example. You don't need 5 minutes.
Thank you, Councillor Burnside. Other speakers on this item? Councillor Holyday?
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry, Mr. Clerk, I haven't had a chance to advise you of the two motions. My first motion is to defer indefinitely. My second motion is to receive the item.
Sorry, Councillor, first motion is to defer indefinitely. Second item.
The second motion was to receive.
Okay. Okay, does anybody have any questions of the mover on the deferral motion? Okay, seeing none. Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Sorry, Councillor Thompson, you have a question of the mover?
Yeah, just on the deferral, through you to Councillor Holyday. So, Councillor Holyday, in terms of deferral, at what point would this matter be brought back for further decision?
It does not.
On the deferral?
Correct.
So you're deferring it indefinitely. So is it one motion or two motions? Because I thought I heard you said you had two motions.
I moved two. One is
one's a deferral.
One's to defer indefinitely.
Oh, indefinite. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the term indefinitely.
I'm sorry, Councillor Thompson. The microphones sometimes doesn't pick up.
Yeah. No, I understand. So one is to defer indefinitely, and then the other is
to receive the report.
To receive. I see. I got you. Thank you. I think I missed that. Thank you, Councillor Holyday. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, other questions on the deferral? Seeing none, does anybody want to speak to the deferral motion? Seeing none, okay, so we vote on the deferral motion. Moved by Councillor Holyday that the item be deferred indefinitely.
May we ask for a recorded vote, please, Mr. Chair?
Sure. All in favor? Councillor Burnside, Councillor Holyday, opposed? Councillors Ainslie, Thompson, and Chang. That motion loses. So now we go back to the debate. Other speakers on this item? No other speakers on this item. So then we have two motions before us. The first one is to receive the item. Sorry, the first item, sorry, Matthew, that's first motion?
Yes.
Okay, so the first motion is that the item be forwarded to City Council without recommendation.
Recorded vote.
May I have a recorded vote, Mr. Chair?
Okay, all in favor of the motion? Ainslie, Burnside, Thompson, Chang, opposed? Holyday, and that motion passes.
So the motion to receive for information is adopted.
Yeah, so that makes Councillor Holyday's motion to receive for information redundant. All right, thank you. So that item is done. We're on to item number 6. I just have to go back to my notes. Sorry, I'll have it in a second. I'm just scrolling up. All right, so we are on item number 6, GG 23.6, amendment to blanket contract number 470-25730 with Schindler Elevator Corporation for the supply of elevating devices, maintenance, and repairs services, held by Councillor Chang. Councillor Chang, questions of staff?
Thank you. Through the chair, this is a very interesting report because the title actually doesn't tell us exactly what this contract is, which is really the support of training for Toronto Fire Service in terms of elevators. And given that we are living in a city that is increasingly vertical, I would like to just hear about what type of training this is and how many incidents of fire rescues are executed by fire services, and is that rate increasing?
Good morning, Chair. I'm joined by Division Commander John Davidson, who spearheads the Toronto Fire Service Technical Operations Division. Through the Chair, Toronto Fire Service, during the accreditation process a number of years ago, identified a need to increase the training for elevator rescues. That report and that identification was identified after CREM had already been awarded, gone through the contract process. Working through the Technical Standards and Safety Authority, which is the authority having jurisdiction in Ontario over elevating devices, we learned as we built our program to their standard that it is required by law to have a licensed mechanical technician in the room when we are actually conducting live hands-on training for elevator rescue. So that is how the report has, the chronology of the report and how it arrived here. Chair, to the councillor's questions about the number of elevator rescues, we continue to see them grow as the city continues to grow. Certainly over the last number of years, they've averaged around 3,000. In fact, in 2024, we had just under 3,400 elevator rescues where Toronto Fire Services was required to go and remove individuals from elevators across the city.
So that's approximately 280 elevator rescues a month. That's quite a bit. And are we seeing, from a technical perspective, anything that the city should be aware of in terms of how elevators are constructed? What are the scenarios that are resulting in the need for these rescues?
Chair, my answer would be the growing city. Certainly, I can't comment on elevator design or approval. That falls under the Technical Standards and Safety Authority. But as the city continues to grow, as we continue to add more high-rises, this is a level of service that will continue to increase, no different than all of our other responses that has shown a steady increase over the last number of years. So the complexity of these rescues range from, opening doors to the extreme of us having firefighters rappel down elevator shafts and removing the top of the elevator and extricating individuals that way. So this is something that is a level of service that is certainly required in this city as we continue to grow, and we are continuing to increase the capacity for which we can deliver the service based on the increasing volume.
As we see more 40, 50, 60, even 70-story applications come to our city, I'm wondering what kind of report or line of sight would council have to better understand this context of this increasing vertical city and the risks associated with vertical living in terms of the dependency on elevators?
Chair, we certainly have been monitoring elevator rescues since the accreditation process started, dating back to 2020. As an example, back at 2020, we had 2,100 responses, and as I said, in 2024, a high of just under 3,400. In terms of line of sight, again, it is a Technical Standards and Safety Authority jurisdiction. They are the ones that license, inspect, and maintain, and Toronto Fire Service's role is when individuals are stuck or there are malfunctions, we certainly will respond, which is why this training is absolutely critical for us to continue, and it is absolutely critical for us to continue to expand our capacity and bandwidth with this training as the city continues to grow. I would like to publicly acknowledge, though, and thank CREM and General Manager Matozo. If Pat had not been as cooperative as he always is, we would be behind in our training right now, and certainly they have been they've extended themselves on this contract to allow Toronto Fire to get a head start on this training.
Okay.
Great, thank you, Chair. Those are all my questions, and I'm happy to move staff recs unless there's other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chang. Councillor Thompson, questions of staff?
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the Chief. Chief, so the report titles, it talks about supply of elevating device maintenance and repair service. And in your comments, and thank you for that, we talked about the need to have a certified elevating device mechanic presence to oversee the exercise of health and safety. And my question is, I see the numbers. Would it not be more practical for us moving forward that we incorporate the complement of FTEs that would have the expertise that we're actually buying as it relates to having someone who's certified as a device mechanic as such? Would it not be cheaper in the long run, since you mentioned we have more buildings that are going up, 70 stories, as Councillor Chang has mentioned?
To you, Mr. Chair, it's Pat Matozo, Councillor Thompson. That's something we can explore with a variety of within the industry itself. And then we could see if that's something we could do. It's specialized depending on the type of elevators too. That's something we could explore and look into. And then we can get back to you on that. But for the time being, this is an essential service that Toronto Fire Services requires.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I appreciate that desire and willingness to look into this. But if we did a business case and a modeling over a period of time, or maybe I'll ask a question this way, is that part of that looking into this, that you would do a modeling, a business case to make a determination about not only the feasibility, but the actual costs? I'm assuming the cost would be less as we move forward if we had some of these services in-house.
To you, Mr. Chair, to you, Councillor Thompson, absolutely. We're looking at that right now in other types of services that vendors are providing, and we would put that forward as part of our budget request. So if we look at if it makes sense to insource some of the work that generates a cost efficiency, absolutely. We're doing that right now and planning to do that for 2026 in another discipline within our organization. So it's something we are looking at and could look at this as well.
All right, so then my final question, as a report, the title of the report, it says for the supply of elevating device maintenance and service repair. So what are the service repair component and what are the elevating device maintenance as it relates to this report and the totality of the $956,003? Or actually it's $972.
So to you, Mr. Chair, the title is relation to the current contract. The actual service is to have mechanics. So the title's actually misleading because that's tied to the
that was
actual
my point,
card.
Mr. Matillo.
Yes, it's misleading. That's correct. It's for mechanics, while that is required by law for Toronto Fire Service to actually conduct the training. But because that's the name of the contract, and this is being amended to the master service agreement, the title has to remain as the contract award.
Right, but could we not have had in brackets or some information that's saying amending that contract and reflecting the actual detail requirement as to the service that's required? I'm just wondering more futuristically if we couldn't be a little clearer with these types of information coming to us as councillors.
To you, Mr. Chair, that's Council, that's a great suggestion, and we'll talk to PMMD about that so we can add some context to the titles.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Holiday, questions of staff?
Thank you, Mr. Matozzo. Can you just help remind me the value? What's the value of the master service agreement with Schindler for elevator services or elevating devices or whatever it's called?
To you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Holiday, this is a 5-year contract. It's a citywide contract for all elevator devices across the city. Total value of a 5-year contract is approximately $20 million.
So this is $900,000 on top of the $20 million.
To you, Mr. Chair, that is correct.
Okay. So what is the city buying in this contract? Just in the basic sense, what's the service?
Chair, it's Chief Jessup. So, Councillor, what this amendment does is it allows Toronto Fire to have a licensed technician, which is required under law, present during our practical training sessions as we increase the number of firefighters that can legally and safely respond to elevator rescues. So it's basically providing us the requirements to have a licensed mechanic in the room during our training.
Okay, does the mechanic teach?
No, the mechanic is there required, again, under the Technical Standards and Safety Authority to make sure that the practical training being taught to our firefighters with the elevator is safe.
Who teaches the training?
Chair, we have a number of Toronto Fire Service people that have gone through the Technical Standards and Safety Authority training. Our program was built in conjunction with them along their lines. So it is conducted in-house by Toronto Fire Service personnel.
So you have in-house personnel that are qualified to teach elevator rescues, teaching firefighters.
Correct.
And then on top of that, you have to have a mechanic. Is it literally in the room? Like standing
Chair,
there?
yes. The mechanic legally has to be in the room while we conduct our practical exercises.
What are the laws that require that?
That falls under the Technical Standards and Safety Authority. They are the governing body and authority having jurisdiction for all elevating devices in Ontario.
And what does the mechanic do? Just just stand there and watch?
The mechanic stands and watch. We are opening doors. The mechanic makes sure the elevator is safe when we have completed the training for the public, and it is a requirement that we have no choice to have.
Okay. Where is the training done? It's done in just buildings across the city?
Actually, Chair, the primary training is conducted on the weekends in City Hall. So we've been working closely with CREM between Metro Hall and City Hall to identify buildings where we can provide this training that is, as you've heard, is dramatically increasing the number of calls, while at the same time minimizing the impact on city staff.
Okay. And so, how does this break down? Is this a number of hours that you've blocked out to have a mechanic available?
Yeah, so we have a schedule that we have been working on over the last 6 months. The training is upwards of 9 hours and is primarily conducted on the weekends so that there's little impact to the city.
So is it like 9 hours times 52 weeks a year?
Well, I would have to pull the schedule, but it's very close. It's over 2,100 hours of training that we have set up. We are taking the number of crews that can provide this service from 5 to 15, and we suspect, given the increase in vertical buildings that have been approved and our increasing call volume, that number will increase as well.
Does the mechanic actually do any work, or do they're just there?
The mechanic is legally required to be there.
Okay. Is there any way to, excuse me, to negotiate something with the next round of the master service agreement? And maybe that's a question for procurement or whoever, Mr. Matozo. It just seems to me there's a big difference from a mechanic that's actually working on equipment and all the stuff that's built into that price versus somebody that's there to literally watch.
To you, Mr. Chair, the costing that Toronto Fire Services has provided in this report is based on rates provided by the vendor. So these would be industry rates, and it's weekends, so it's most likely time and a half or double time as well, given
what's the number per hour?
What's the rate, Councillor?
I could get that for you, Councillor. I don't have that with me, but it's something we can get to you.
Okay.
Thank you. I believe that's all the questions of staff on this item. Speakers was held by Councillor Cheng. Councillor Cheng, did you wish to speak? I know you said you were going to move the recommendations.
Yeah, I can move staff recommendations, but I see Councillor Holiday has something to say.
Okay. Councillor Holiday to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I will only say that I implore staff to please find a better way to do this. I appreciate the rules, and perhaps one should always ask questions about those rules to those authorities, but boy, to pay someone to stand around and watch, and this is where I really take note, is that we have qualified trainers that are teaching firefighters on how to do a safe rescue. One would hope, they're quite experienced and that they're doing all the right thing, and I'm sure they are. Because they have to do these really important rescues. And like Councillor Cheng, I really do appreciate the importance of them and the growing need in the city. So I don't question the necessity for the training. It just seems like such an inefficient way. And as Mr. Matozo just put at the end, it's probably premium pay on a weekend for someone to just stand and watch, and a highly trained individual. So I don't know what the answer is. I don't know that we're going to solve it in this committee, but this is almost $1 million of bureaucracy added to a training package that's probably already expensive. And if you think about it, it's on a $20 million contract, an extra $1 million, which is a significant percentage. And that 20 million represents all of our repair needs at the city. So I will support it because I feel that we don't really have a choice. But I just implore folks to find a better way to do this.
Thank you, Councillor Holiday. Councillor Thompson to speak.
Thank you. This speaking in similar fashion as Councillor Holiday, and this is not unique to this particular item per se, it permeates through many others, where it doesn't appear that we look at sort of the future approach to our needs and requirements. I mean, it's really easy just to simply say, let's just amend the contract, let's just add another million here, another million there. But I think we really need to look at the valuation and the benefits and the need for the types of services and sort of the, the growth that Chief talks about, building more high rises in the city, and that is a given. And just to have someone come around and stand around and be generating time and a half, et cetera, just to watch. And yeah, we do need the expertise, but can we not build some of these things in-house and create that expertise that we need? Because we know that the demand is not going to be any less. And, the cost to us and the cost to taxpayers are significant. We tend to look at these things in isolation. And then one of the interesting things that we write in many of these reports, we say things like, there is no cost to this report. There's always a cost to every report that we actually do, quite frankly. It may not be immediate, but the fact of the matter is there is a cost associated with it. And as decision makers, as the board that governs the city through council that we are part of, we need to really exercise more prudence and awareness as to the long-term challenges that we have with respect to affording things that are needed in the city. And we take care of the pennies, the pound, the dollars will take care of themselves in the long run. And I think that we could do a better job. And in fact, I've got a couple of items that I've held, and I'm going to ask questions around this. And I'm speaking to this because these are similarities within those items that I've held. Not enough clarity in terms of the information. And I know that Mr. Matozo spoke to the fact that we're just, amending a contract, and the name and everything associated with that has to be brought forward from a legal perspective. But I think it'd be really helpful for us as, decision makers on these things to have a little bit more details to help us to have a better sense of understanding as to why and just be clearer. But I also think that, quite frankly, we really need to make the business cases for all of these things that we do. Things are not getting any cheaper. And I think that we have to do a better job in terms of how we make this determination and decisions on the things that are needed by the city. And I think we should build in our own expertise to be able to facilitate the needs that exist within the varying departments across the board. And so this is one of those cases. And so while I will support it, I have great concerns as it relates to this and many other reports that come to us just simply to, add more money, add more funds, and to amend, and because that's an easy process. Now, this is not a slight or a negative to staff. I'm just simply saying I think that we need to start to think a little bit differently. And I think that differential in thinking could actually help us immensely, both in terms of the need for whether or not the FTEs, and I understand that there are long-term implications. There is, pensions, costs, the number of people and so on. But if we have the right talent in place, I think we will see a real benefit to the city in terms of savings, and at the same time not put, in this case, the fire at risk, because obviously we know safety is our number one job. It isn't about simply the dollars and cents, but we also have to be mindful of that as well. Those are my remarks, Mr. Chair, and I will support the recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thompson. Other speakers on this item? Seeing none, so we have the recommendations before us moved by Councillor Chang. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Our next item is GG 23.14, amendment to non-competitive purchase order 605-5315 with Osler, Hoskin, and Harcourt LLP for legal services for a Union Station held by Councillor Thompson. Councillor Thompson, questions of staff?
Yes, thank you. I understand, and then in just my remarks a short time ago, I understand that this is simply, again, an amendment to the contract that has been was awarded. My first question is, what are the hourly rates that the lawyers are charging with this contract? Is that something that could be stated publicly?
To the chair, this is Scott Barrett, Director, Key Assets. The fees I don't have in front of me, but we can certainly gather those for you. What we have done in procuring the lawyers is ensure that the fees are within an industry accepted standard. And given that it was a non-competitive procurement, we also had discounts applied from the lawyers.
I'm just wondering, in the future, could we, as committee members, could we have that information? I think it'd be very helpful. And just, so that's my question. Could we have that detailed information in the future?
To you, Mr. Chair, absolutely, Councillor Thompson, we can provide that detail.
And again, I'm going to ask this question. Well, first of all, how many lawyers do we have working for the city? Does anybody know?
Through the chair, there's approximately over 150 lawyers.
Was that 150 or 130?
150.
150. And none of them have any of these legal expertise that they can go to represent the city in this particular case, dealing with the tribunal? We don't have that expertise in-house of the 150 lawyers?
To you, Mr. Chair, it's Pat Matozo. To you, Councillor Thompson. Osler Harcourt has been on Union Station file for USRP 1 and 2 and had a level of expertise with respect to Union Station itself. So the staff engaged with Osler as they had specific knowledge of the station, and it is quite complex between ownership of the city, ownership of Metrolinx, and we needed that experiential knowledge that Osler already had. So bringing someone in new in the city would have been.
So with great respect, Mr. Matozo, and thank you very much. I apologize, I only have a limited amount of time. I'm simply asking, do we not have the legal expertise of 150 lawyers with an understanding of the complexity of the case that you mentioned that Osler, Hoskin, and Harcourt has? Do we not have those expertise at all?
To you, Mr. Chair, it's a collaboration between city legal and the expropriation team we have within the city. And in this case, we leveraged Osler, who had the institutional knowledge of the station over the last 13 years. So it's a combination of both.
Okay, but this is a matter at the OLT, correct? With their expertise?
To the chair, this item was to be before the OLT. With the settlement, it is no longer being heard by OLT.
Got you, but so, Mr. Matozo, just curious, the expertise that Osler, Hoskin, and Harcourt brought to the table, what was so unique about that we didn't have the in-house understanding as it relates to an asset that is the city's asset, which is Union Station, and the relationship with respect to expropriating of lands by Metrolinx? What is the sort of real sort of expertise that they bring that we didn't have? And as you mentioned, there's collaboration. So what is the collaboration that we bring to the table?
To you, Mr. Chair, to Council Thompson, first and foremost, the majority of expropriations CREM does on behalf of the city are with in-house lawyers. So I just wanted to make sure I just said that for the record. In this particular case, because it's a stratified ownership, the complexity of the type of construction that's actually happening. So this is specific to USCP 1, and part of the expropriation of easements is also tied to a future project that that Metrolinx has with respect to the expansion of the tracks and electrifications. So given that they had the knowledge with USRP 1 and 2 with the construction piece, they had a lot of institutional knowledge. And what I would say also, the city lawyer that was on this file had retired as well, so we lost that institutional knowledge. So all the institutional knowledge we had left was with Osler. We still had new lawyers coming on from the city, but losing that expertise with the city legal that had retired, we still retained Osler to continue with the expropriation or settlement on our behalf.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Are there questions of staff on this item? Seeing none, speakers on this item? Councillor Thompson, you held it?
Yeah, no, thanks. I mean, I'll move it, of course, and you know, I thank Mr. Vitoso for the explanation and so on, but I don't recall reading in the report that the expert in-house lawyer that we had retired or any of that. And I think, again, just for staff's perhaps edification in the future, if we could have more details in these reports, some way you can incorporate that so that, at least for myself, that I have a better sense of understanding. And I would like to understand the rates, and I understand the notion of industry standards, but I don't always agree with the industry standards, quite frankly, in terms of the costs that we have to pay, because it's always seeming to be extremely high, that the city has, you know, deep pockets, and we tend to have, obviously, paying the highest cost. And I appreciate the discounted aspect that Mr. Matoso has spoken about, but I'm always very concerned about some of these things. So I just wanted, again, to reiterate my concern with respect to some of the information that's not contained in these reports. That would be very helpful if we move when we're moving forward. And I would like to have a better sense of understanding as to what the rates were. So if someone could prepare perhaps a briefing note on this particular file, and forward that information to my office, I'd greatly appreciate it as we move to council on the 23rd. So I can move the item, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Staff has said they'll have a briefing note provided for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, staff.
Sorry, Councillor, are you moving the recommendations in the report?
Yes, I am, Mr.
Councillor
Chair.
Thompson's moving the recommendations in GG 23.14. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is GG 23.15, award of negotiated request for proposal document 483-3008-494 to UAP Incorporated, operating as Napa Auto Parts, for the supply of automotive equipment parts and inventory management solution, held by Councillor Thompson. Councillor Thompson, questions to staff?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. Napa is a US-based company.
Through your chair. So just 1 second here. So we're awarding to UPC, which is a Canadian-based subsidiary of GPC, which is an American company. UPC or Napa has about 700 locations within Canada, and they're celebrating their 100th year next year in 2026.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that. And we're looking at, is it 3 specific contract that's incorporated in this one report? Did I read that properly?
Through your chair, that's correct. There's 3 separate contracts. One is with Fleet Services Division, the second one with paramedics, and the third one with fire.
Got it. Thank you. And are we asking for, we're looking, let me just do the second one, which is, and I'll get to fleet, it's paramedics. We're asking for an additional, so it was an initial term of a 2-year contract. That was initial period, correct?
To the chair, that is correct.
Right. So now we're asking that there's an option to renew for 4 additional 2 years. So that's an 8-year contract. Is that correct?
To the chair, for the initial term and the option terms, it's a total of 10 years in total.
10, right. Okay. So, so I subtracted the initial. And so when we look at that number of 57,754,897, and I think this is a general for the other one as well. For fleet services, $185 million, if I read that correctly, additional terms and so on. what exactly are we buying? What exactly are we getting from NAPA for those particular departments, fire, EMS, and fleet services? Do we have like a list of all the different parts that we're buying from them, the service related to that? I see large numbers, but I don't have the sort of detail relating to that. I'm just wondering, is that possible to have that, or is it just too much information for us to have that we couldn't digest it? We were just digesting the large number. There's a lot unpacked in what I just stated, but I'm just curious as to why we couldn't have more definitive, detailed information associated with these items.
Through the chair, so I can kick it off, and if fire and paramedics want to add any more context, they can. So from a fleet services perspective, this is for the provision of all parts for all of our vehicles that the work is performed in-house. This includes everything from oil filters to arms on the garbage trucks. All components that we service in-house is being provided through this contract. And it's very similar to fire and paramedics. If you want to add some more context.
To the chair, yes. For paramedic services, we have a complement or a fleet complement of approximately 230 ambulances and then multiple operational support and administrative vehicles. And as my colleague in fleet services was saying, it's for the supply of all parts for repairs, windshield wipers, brake lights, alternators, any mechanical components that are required for servicing and maintaining those vehicles to meet the regulatory requirements for both Ministry of Health and Department of Transportation certifications.
Got you, thank you. And so annually then, how much are we spending? Is it 18 million, 20 million, 18.5 million?
On an annual basis, again, it's 3 separate contracts. So fleet
I understand.
services it's around $12 million for the first year of that contract.
Is that for fleet?
That's for fleet, that's correct.
And then for EMS and then fire?
To the chair, for paramedic services, the initial term is 9.6 million inclusive of HST for the initial term, right. So approximately 4.5 per year.
Okay, got you.
Chair, and for fire, the initial cost for the 2-year term is approximately 3.8 million net of HST.
Right, and so what are the benefits then with respect to this much more long-term agreement? Do you have that broken down? And how do you compare that? So if we're looking at a 10-year contract, how do we know in year 6 or year 5 what the cost of these particular parts will be? How do we plan for that as part of this contract? How do we build that in?
Through you, Chair. So before we kicked off into this contract, we did a market sounding. We engaged with 9 different municipalities, understanding the right approach and what their lessons learned have been, and incorporated some of the lessons learned that we have had. 6 of the municipalities were smaller in size. Most of them had in-house or in-sourced parts and inventory management. 3 of them were similar or larger size in the city of Toronto, and all of them had an IBS, integrated business model. Some of the benefits of this contract and having a 10-year term is, first of all, the CPI is adjusted on a 2-year basis or on the term of the contract. So there are savings that we have incorporated through for the CPI increases, not being on an annual basis. Additionally, we have the staffing levels have been increased from our current contract from the supplier. We also have a streamlined cost structure where cost is fixed on a per store location. And lastly, we get volume-based discounts. So if a monthly procurement increases or surpasses $1 million, we get an additional 1% discount on our inventory purchases.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
Mr. Chair, I could just ask one small question further, or else I'll ask for a second round.
Okay. Do you have one more question? Because you're at 6 minutes.
Yes, I understand. I appreciate that. My apologies. As it relates to this contract here, I thought I read something there where it incorporates benefits that the province is also involved in. I can't find it right now, but I thought I read that.
Through you, Chair, I assume you're talking about the ability for other municipalities or the province to leverage our existing contract for having the similar contract for their services if desired.
Yes, how does that benefit us?
I'll turn to the CPO to answer that question on how other municipalities can leverage our contract if they desire.
But no, that it benefits us as well, please.
So unfortunately, I can't speak to how it benefits us. It does help us build relationships with other municipalities as well. This would be through what we call the piggyback clause, where other jurisdictions can participate off our contracts for similar costs and types of services. And this is done through their own procurement divisions.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thompson. Other questions of staff on this item? Seeing none, Councillor Thompson to speak.
I can just move it, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the staff. And again, just with respect to the concerns that I had about the previous item and others, I think we just need a little bit more, at least I need more clarity, more detailed information would be very helpful to have a better sense of understanding in terms of valuation, and just ensuring that we're getting the best bang for our buck. I'm sure that the staff is convinced, and I have no doubt about that. I too have to convince myself, and that's where I require some additional information. And I can move this with respect to the items that are the item that's in front of us. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Thompson moving the recommendations in GG 23.14. All in favor? Sorry, did I say 1.5? Sorry, GG 23.15. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is GG 23.16, non-competitive contract with Fortran Traffic Systems Limited for the city's transportation services Vision Zero project, held by Councillor Thompson. Councillor Thompson, questions of staff? Sorry, you're on mute.
You'd think I'd learn, right? Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. Yeah, so this is the only company that provides this equipment that we need in order to create more overall safety in the city. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
So why would we refer to it as a non-competitive procurement? I understand obviously the term, but they're the only ones that provide it. We already have a contract with them, and we're amending that. Is that correct? Is that what we're doing?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Right. So the term non-competitive using in the report here is just for clarification.
Through the chair, this is Genevieve. We determine procurements based on either they're competitive or non-competitive. So that's why, again, it's still a non-competitive procurement can be supported based on certain justifications, such as proprietary or the only supplier out there. But it's just the way we call things, it's non-competitive.
Just the language in terms of the statement. Okay.
Correct.
And just remind us exactly what this company is providing to us for this contract.
So they'll be providing flashing beacons that we use in our Vision Zero school safety zone treatment plan.
Right. And so they have a proprietary system that causes a light to flash, and nobody else has that in Canada. I have companies in my ward who I think are in those businesses. They can't provide that service.
So we went out initially in 2018 for the procurement. And this was the vendor that was selected, and they have the proprietary software. It helps us to manage the flashing beacons in terms of their operation, things like health status. So, keeping and aligning with those now will ensure that we have a single system to maintain going forward, as opposed to multiple systems that we would need to maintain.
Oh, I see. So a company like Guild Electric, for example, they could design lights that flash and provide overall safety, but you're saying that they don't have, quite frankly, the system that would be in place to help you to create this sort of unison across the board with respect to our system?
So basically, the Guild would be the ones installing, but
Right, okay.
Fortran would be the one supplying the flashing beacon.
And that's part of the brains of the system?
So it's the module itself which flashes, and then it's the software that kind of, again, operates the beacon itself on. We have a schedule where they operate 14 hours a day. They use solar power.
Gotcha.
So it's the entire system.
Okay, got you. Thank you very much for the clarity on that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Those are all my questions.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Holiday, questions of staff?
Thank you, Chair. If I read the links correctly, the original bid in 2018 was around $2.7 million. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then in 2022, either the committee or council approved an increase to the contract up to around 4.6 million. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then we've got another 2 million in front of us, same contract.
Yes, this will take us till the end of the year and will allow us to complete all of the school safety zone treatments outstanding.
Okay, so that's the key point I think you mentioned. The number of schools was known, the number of beacons was known generally at the start of the contract, was it not?
As we progressed through the Vision Zero program, it was decided to continue to increase the number of schools that we would apply the treatment to. So at the beginning, we didn't know that we would necessarily do it for all schools, and as council authorized more treatments, we've increased the value of the contract to meet those needs.
Explain that, please, if you please. I had originally remembered that it was all public schools, which would be the 4 boards. Is that right? We didn't change that, did we?
We did not change it. It was more that we looked at whether or not we needed more beacons for things like private schools, potentially. And as we started with the initial design, we determined that we needed more beacons per school as well. So it's the number of beacons per school that we've settled on.
Okay, I just want to go back. I want to make sure I understand this, though. This company was chosen among a bunch of others. Its bid, I think, was the lowest, was the report to the bid panel. That document doesn't have a lot of details about what was asked for, but do we have a sense that when that procurement was conducted, that the end goal of outfitting all of the schools with potential volume was known? And what I'm getting at is, did this contract grow and grow and grow over time because it was simply a technology that talked to the other beacons? And was the procurement done with the whole scale in mind? And what happened from then till now if it wasn't?
I'd have to get back to you, Councillor, on that specific question in terms of what the original intent was. But again, we kind of estimated our kind of volumes to get us through at a certain rate of schools per year.
So what was the intention of the original procurement back in 2018? Was that to cover all of the schools? Was that to cover part of it? Or what was the idea?
The original budget for 2018, we did not have budget to do all schools at that time.
Okay, so you went out, you had a certain amount of budget, you bought a certain number of lights to do a certain number of schools. The technology you selected is one that grows on itself. In other words, it talks to other beacons. And then the next non-competitive procurements, and there were 2 now, this is the second one, is to add numbers and numbers of lights to that because they speak to each other. Are there any concerns about the entire procurement process? You know, did we not have a vision from the start of it to complete all of these schools? And did we build that into the procurement considerations? And could we have ended up at a different place with a different company with different pricing?
I think if we had budget to do all schools at the outset, we would have started with the original competitive procurement, which is what we did. and this was the company that we ended up with at the outset. So if we had had more budget to do all schools at that time, it's possible another vendor might have come in with different pricing, but this is sort of the vendor that was selected based on that competitive process originally.
Last question, was the ability for the beacons to talk to each other or talk to the network part of the procurement requirements of the 2018 bid?
There were specifications in relation to remote control of the beacons, time of day, those sort of parameters, so we don't have to have staff going out to kind of do programming and testing that they're functioning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holyday. Other questions of staff? Seeing none. Speakers on this item? Councillor Thompson, you hold the item?
Yes, I would just move the item, please, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Councillor Thompson is moving the recommendations in GG 23.16. All in favor? And that carries. And then, sorry, we have to go back to members of the committee. We have to go back to one item. We have to go back to GG 23.11. Non-competitive contract with Nederman Canada Limited for manufactured parts and services for corporate real estate management. Staff have said the recommendation needs an amendment. The first words where it says the General Government Committee, it should actually be Council. So I need a motion to reopen, sorry, I'm going to move a motion to reopen number 11. All in favor? That carries. And then, so I'm moving the amendment that the word at the beginning of the recommendation, General Government Committee, be replaced with Toronto City Council. All in favor? That carries. Item is amended. All in favor? That carries. And I believe there aren't any bills, Matthew? Oh, sorry.
We have one more item left.
Sorry. Item
Councillor Chang.
GG 23.22 Community Space Tenancy Lease Agreement with the Neighborhood Group Community Services, a municipal capital facility designation at 5220 Yonge Street in Ward 18, held by Councillor Chang. Councillor Chang, questions of staff?
So I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say some brief remarks and then move staff recommendations. That's okay.
Does anybody else have any questions of staff on this item? Seeing none. Speakers, Councillor Chang.
Thank you. Through the chair, I just want to thank staff for the hard work that went towards finding the best fit to best use and animate this space. This is a ground floor, Yonge Street facing community space that was negotiated with the developer. It's only 3,494 square feet, so it's not that large, but it will play an important role in bringing people together in the community of Willowdale. We thank the neighborhood group, community services, for their leadership in taking on the responsibility as a lead tenant, but they will be moving forward in partnership with North York Arts, North York Women's Centre, Toronto Fringe Festival, and North York Seniors. So we know that community space is at a premium in our growing city, and we also know the need for community space is ever growing. So we thank staff for all the work that went behind trying to get all of these pieces in place, and we look forward to how this hub will bring new ways of animation and building social fabric and community connectivity in the community of Willowdale, and just want to highlight how important it is that we continue to work towards securing more community space to serve our growing city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Chang. Other speakers on this item? Seeing none, Councillor Chang's moving the recommendations on GG 23.22. All in favor? And that carries. Now I believe, Matthew, that was our last item of business. No bills? Sorry, no bills? And no bills. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Thompson, all in favor? That carries. Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you to all the staff. Very much appreciated this morning. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you,
Meeting
Chair, and
adjourned.
everyone else. Have a great day.